All right, everybody, get ready. Because today, we are taking a deep dive into a career that I'll admit I don't know a ton about, military engineering. We're looking at some excerpts from RoleCatcher, and honestly, this is some really interesting stuff. They go way deeper than I expected.
What's interesting to me is how RoleCatcher is showing that it's not just about, designing bridges and knowing math, which I think is what a lot of people think of when they hear military engineer.
Yeah,
It's about national security,
yeah.
about how engineering impacts that, and how you're not just building something, you're building the future of, how we defend ourselves.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And speaking of the future, one thing that I noticed from these RoleCatcher excerpts is that they really emphasize cutting-edge technology,
Mhm.
robotics, AI, advanced materials. This isn't just about knowing like the basics of engineering. It's about being on the absolute forefront. Would you say that's accurate?
Absolutely. Think about it. Anyone, someone who took a couple engineering classes can design a bridge, but a military engineer might be designing a bridge that can be, like, deployed by parachute
Wow,
and assembled in a couple of hours, strong enough to support tanks.
that's wild.
We're talking about pushing the boundaries of what's possible, and to do that, you have to have a really deep understanding of, like, new and emerging technologies.
So it's not just about building things. It's about strategically applying those engineering skills in an environment that is just constantly changing. The military context is always evolving. And what I'm seeing here is that military engineers are involved in almost every stage of a piece of military equipment's life cycle. Am I right?
Exactly, yeah. From the initial, like, oh, we need this thing in the design phase, all the way to overseeing manufacturing, conducting research, ensuring, like, quality control and assurance, making sure that the stuff is actually going to work. They're even involved in, like, the maintenance of it and even the disposal of the equipment, ensuring that it's, effective and secure through its entire life.
Wow, see, that's way more than I even thought about. And they had a really extensive list of relevant degrees, too. Civil, mechanical, electrical, aerospace, industrial, structural, computer. I mean, it seems like any kind of engineer who wants to work in this context has a potential path.
Yeah, and even beyond just those degrees, they also emphasize, like, continuous learning, advanced degrees, certifications, keeping up with the latest and greatest because things are always changing. This is not a career where you go to school once and then you're done. You always have to be learning.
This all sounds amazing. But one thing RoleCatcher does not shy away from is the difficult aspects of the job. They're very upfront about the fact that there will be high levels of stress, that you could be in dangerous work environments, and the possibility of, deployments.
Yeah.
What should someone listening be thinking about when they see those kinds of things?
It's about being honest with yourself. Not every career is right for every person, and that's okay. Like, I wouldn't be a good fit for this. What's important is that you know what you're good at, you know what you're not good at, and you know how much risk you're comfortable with. This isn't just a job. It's like signing up for something much bigger, and you need to know if you're going to be okay with that.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people don't think about, what it really means to sign up for something like that.
Yeah, it's not just about, oh, am I comfortable being in danger? It's also about your family.
That's right.
Are they going to be okay with this? What are the implications there? Because they talk about frequent deployments as a very real part of the job. That's not just like a bullet point on a resume. That's something that's going to have a real impact on your life outside of work.
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, you can't just go on deployment and come back and expect everything to be the same.
Exactly, exactly. Frequent deployments can put a strain on relationships, on your family. It's a big sacrifice.
Mhm.
But it's not all negative, right? They do point out the camaraderie, that when you work in this kind of environment, you're not just working with colleagues, you're facing these challenges alongside people who get it.
Right. People who understand.
Exactly. And that shared experience, that shared understanding creates a bond that's hard to find in a lot of other careers.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, it's interesting you say that because they actually talk about that career progression. Like, they outline the path from entry-level military engineer all the way up to, like, principal military engineer.
Right. Like you're not just stuck in one position.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they don't just list out titles, they actually give examples. Like, this is what a person in this role would be doing, which I thought was really helpful.
Yeah, you can actually imagine the trajectory. So like an entry-level engineer might be assisting on technical tasks, doing a lot of learning on the job, but someone who's a principal military engineer, they could be advising high-level leadership, actually shaping the direction of where military technology is going in the future. That's amazing.
Yeah, it's huge.
That's quite a journey.
Okay, so one more thing I wanted to ask you about was this section on specializations, because it seems like there's more than one type of military engineer. What kind of specializations are we even talking about? I mean, I have some ideas, but what are your thoughts?
So they don't go into a ton of detail here, but you can kind of infer based on like what's going on in the world right now.
Right.
Sustainability is a big one, becoming increasingly important. So you could specialize in energy efficient equipment or finding ways to like power military bases with renewable energy sources.
So instead of having to rely on traditional fuels, which like logistically can be a nightmare and, not great for the environment.
Right, it's a vulnerability.
Exactly. You're talking about a more sustainable approach to defense.
And then there's the whole world of cyber warfare, which is, only growing. So protecting military systems, infrastructure, making sure that they're safe from cyber attacks is going to be a huge deal going forward.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
They've always had to worry about physical attacks, but now you have to worry about people hacking into your systems. So any military engineer with that specialization, that background in cybersecurity, they're going to be very valuable.
Because it's like the battlefield has changed.
Totally. It's not just a physical space anymore. It's this digital space as well.
Okay, so last thing, because I don't want to run out of time.
Yeah.
But they had this whole section on interview prep that I thought was super interesting. What do you think makes the interview process for a military engineer so unique? What's the deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to say like, oh, you got to be good at interviewing, but they were really emphasizing that. So what do you think makes the interview process different for this kind of role? Well, I think when you're talking about national security, when you're talking about projects that are incredibly complex and could have really high stakes.
Right, like it's not just about building a website.
Exactly. You have to be able to show that you can handle that. It's not enough to just know the technical stuff. You have to be able to think on your feet to make good decisions under pressure.
Right, because lives could be on the line, potentially.
Absolutely. So RoleCatcher is really trying to get you ready to demonstrate those skills, those less tangible qualities that make a good military engineer.
They even have this whole section. It's called Interview Prep, Questions to Expect. And they have links to different guides. One of the questions was, how do you ensure compliance with safety regulations when you're designing a military structure? That's a really specific question. It's not tell me about your strengths.
It's a very specific question, and I think it shows what they're looking for. You have to know about engineering, yeah, but you also have to understand the military context, the regulations, how to assess risk, maybe even ethical considerations.
It's they want you to think bigger. Not just about the technical solution, but what are all the consequences?
Yeah.
So for someone who's listening to this and they're like, okay, this is really cool, I want to learn more. What would you say is the one thing RoleCatcher really wants you to take away from all of this? What's the message?
I think it's do your homework. And I don't mean study your engineering textbooks, although that's important too, but really think about who you are, what you want, and if this is the right fit.
Right, because it's easy to romanticize it.
It is. It sounds really cool, oh, I'm going to design, cutting-edge military tech.
Right, like a video game.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not a game. It's serious stuff.
Yeah.
So they really want you to think about, can you handle the pressure? Can you handle the sacrifices that come with this job?
Like deployments. Because we talked about it, but it's different when it's you, right?
Yeah.
It's your family, it's your life.
And I think what RoleCatcher's trying to do is they don't want you going into this blind. They want you to connect with people who are actually doing the work, attend events, maybe even see if you can get an internship or something, dip your toes in the water before you jump in head first.
Yeah, get a sense of what it's really like.
Yeah.
So for our listeners, if you're now okay, where do I go from here? I have so many questions. What does RoleCatcher say? What's the next step?
Well, they have a ton of stuff on their website, obviously.
Yeah.
They go into more detail about the different specializations you can go into, their salary information. They even offer personalized career advice, which is really cool.
Oh, wow.
But beyond that, I think what they're really saying is you have to take charge of your own journey.
Love that.
You can't just sit around and wait for this dream job to fall into your lap. You have to go after it.
Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about, right? It's we want to give you information.
Exactly.
We want to empower you to make decisions about your life, your career, whatever that looks like.
And this could be it.
Right. So if you're thinking, maybe military engineering is for me, don't just turn off this podcast and forget about it. Go do some more research. See what's out there. You never know. You could be the one designing the next generation of, I don't know, robot soldiers or something. Who knows what the future holds?
Exactly. That's what's so exciting about it.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. We'll see you next time.